I came across this unexpected turn of events in the smoothest way possible, right at the start of our yearly macho fishing weekend. Each year, me and my buddies, Scott, Stan, Roger, dive into the lake for 3 days of intense fishing, while our partners head off for their own getaway. Our bond is strong, with Roger and Mary as our closest friends. Stan Fortunato, Roger's relative and the youngest among us, joined our group and became one of our top players over time. Laura and I started our journey together straight out of school. We were young and confident, and I had plenty of drive. Right after graduation, I began a small pool business, growing it into a successful venture serving more than 100 homes, with a team of 4 in just a few years. 20 years later, we're thriving, serving over 1,500 homes with a team of 30, and Stan is a crucial part of our operation in Orlando. Regardless of education or work history, Stan's energy, hard work, and great teamwork made him the leader of our Orlando branch. Impressed by his performance, I gave him a significant raise and a share in the company. Our professional relationship turned into a close friendship, making work enjoyable every day. We expanded our business from Tampa to Orlando, becoming the top pool service in Central Florida. With pools everywhere, our business flourished, bringing in money and securing our position at the top. As our business grew, I realized the importance of managing our finances wisely. I turned to Howard, a retired expert in finance and a family member, for guidance. His advice was invaluable, guiding us through challenges in the business world. With Howard's help, I expanded our business even further during a favorable mortgage rate period. I trusted Howard and his wife Beth, who provided invaluable legal advice that propelled us to success. Beth, with her intelligence and strength, suggested setting up a trust to protect our assets from legal issues. I trusted her completely with this important task. We're living the good life now, with marital happiness and our pursuit of our dream home intertwined. Laura and her friends adore our new place, which boasts a luxurious pool, a themed patio bar, and a top-notch BBQ setup. And let's not forget about the fantastic perks Laura managed to secure for us. Our neighborhood's property values are skyrocketing, making us feel like we hit the jackpot. Naturally, I agreed to all of Laura's wishes, knowing that when it's time to sell, we'll come out on top. Love can make us do things we wouldn't usually do, but in the end, it's for the best, right? Today's the day. Laura and her friends are here at our fancy house for a weekend of fun. As soon as they arrived, I was told not to bother them while they have their fun. They want to enjoy themselves without us husbands around, and I was happy to go along with it. I was excited to get away from all the girl talk and weekend small talk. With my fishing gear ready and feeling free, I left quickly. Fishing felt like paradise. After weeks of working hard to manage my growing company, the idea of fishing and hanging out with my friends was amazing. I left the ladies to enjoy their wine and secrets. I couldn't help but think about how lucky I am to have Laura and her group of friends in my life. They can drive us husbands crazy sometimes, but we know deep down they make our days more interesting. With a big smile, I went to Roger's place, knowing our weekend adventure was just beginning. We had planned our lake trip carefully, aiming to leave at 6 o'clock in the evening and get to our destination by 9 o'clock. The next 3 days promised exciting fishing and good times. As I was getting ready to go, I suddenly realized I forgot my special bait, which I spent a lot of time making in my workshop. Fishing isn't just a hobby for me. It's something I'm passionate about. Making my own lures and tackle fills me with pride because having the right equipment can make a big difference in catching fish. The lure I've been working on for the past week is important to me. It's something I made with care, meant to attract big fish and give me a lot of satisfaction on the water. Realizing how important it was to have the right bait, I couldn't imagine going on our trip without it. So I told my fishing buddies I needed to go back and get my bait before we left. They understood and chuckled, knowing how much I care about fishing. At 5 o'clock in the evening, I got into the car, drove the short 7-minute trip home, parked alongside the other women's cars, walked to the side door, and quietly went down to the workshop, hoping not to disturb the ladies or get in trouble for coming back early, being careful not to make any noise. I approached the workbench and noticed I could hear the women talking. I couldn't help but laugh, realizing they were already having a good time, as shown by their laughter and talk. They were sitting in the shade by the Hawaiian hut on the side of my house, while the workbench was right under the window, so I could catch bits of their conversation. I'm not someone who listens in on others, and their talk didn't really interest me. But when I heard my wife talking about me in bed, I got curious. For some reason, I decided to record that part of the conversation on my iPhone, thinking I'd tease her about it later. Little did I know those next few minutes would mess up my fishing plans and turn everything upside down. Suddenly, I found myself in the middle of some juicy gossip. The ladies were really getting into it, and I couldn't help but laugh at how open they were. It seemed like they were talking about personal stuff, and it was getting intense. Amidst all the laughing, Laura didn't hold back from talking about her relationship with her husband while I was there. I heard her bragging to the others about my abilities and how I hadn't changed over the years. It made me realize that there was Laura, proudly talking about her husband. She even mentioned how things change in a marriage over time, but said it's normal. Then, out of nowhere, one of the ladies asked a big question. I perked up, curious to see how Laura would answer. They were like detectives, trying to figure out why Laura was acting different lately. With Laura being so open, I felt like the conversation was about to get interesting. As we waited for Laura's answer, the tension and curiosity were high. Suddenly my heart started racing, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Did Laura just confess something about Stan? Our Stan? Panic hit me and I leaned in closer, desperate to hear every word. My mind raced as I struggled to process this shocking news. Stan, whom I trusted and thought of as a friend, was somehow involved with my wife. It felt like the ground was disappearing beneath me, and I fought to control my feelings. Every word they said felt like a stab to my heart. The laughter and happiness that used to fill the air now felt like a cruel reminder of betrayal. My hands shook as I held the phone, my heart pounding in my chest, tears threatening to spill. Listening to this heartbreaking conversation, I felt like I had no power over my own life. I was overwhelmed with shock and sadness, wishing I could go back and undo those painful words. Suddenly, reality hit me hard. The trust I had in Laura and Stan was shattered, leaving me feeling abandoned and completely shattered. The pain was unbearable, leaving me feeling crushed and devastated. Their conversation made it clear my life would never be the same. The innocence and joy that once filled our home now seemed like they would be replaced by sadness and hopelessness. No, Bob and I have a great sex life, and he's always satisfied me. I love him and would never try anything with Stan on purpose. It just happened. Laura, you betrayed Bob. You can't be that happy in your marriage. No, you don't get it. My love for Bob means everything to me. He's not just my partner. He's my safe place, my peace, my heart, and my shelter. And yes, he fulfills me. I love him deeply. What happened with Stan was a mistake. But you said Stan is good in bed, suggesting closeness. We're trying to understand. Tell us the whole story, but remember, this stays between us. The guys would be furious with Stan, and my husband would kick me out if he knew. I'd never want to hurt him. He's so nice. But he'll never get it. Can I trust you to keep this between us? Although I couldn't hear their response, I figured they all agreed. Okay, let's not talk about this again. After Susan left Stan last month, he was devastated, completely shocked. He was planning to propose to her. When I saw him at the restaurant, we talked, and he poured his heart out, telling me everything. Girls, he was in tears. This strong, tough man was falling apart, and it broke my heart. I felt really sorry for him, sitting beside him until he calmed down. He was so sad and upset that I felt a strong urge to comfort him, almost like a mother would. Oh, come on, Laura. You're old enough to be his mom. Don't make it sound so dramatic. You felt a physical need to comfort him, not like a mother would. Well, you're right, but at the time I wasn't thinking about being physical. Anyway, he walked me to my car, thanking me for being there for him and letting him share his feelings. I just smiled and gave him a friendly kiss. That's when things changed. Before I knew it, he silently took my hand and led me to his truck parked nearby under a shady tree. I don't know why I went along with it. I was mesmerized. We ended up in the back of his car, kissing passionately like we were teenagers. Then he admitted he always found me attractive and fantasized about being with me. I was surprised and flattered by his compliments. But what I did next, I can't explain. Honestly, in that moment, I didn't think about Bob or our family. It was like I was in a trance. I undid his belt and pulled down his pants, suddenly wanting to be intimate with him. He thanked me, saying he needed it after what he'd been through, but hearing that broke my heart. Those words hurt me deeply, touching every part of my being. I shook with pain as a sense of loss overwhelmed me. Mary, Roger's wife, spoke first. Wow, that's intense. We had no idea you were capable of that. Me neither. I never thought I'd do something like that, added Emily, Scott's wife. But it just happened. I think all of us girls dream about it, but it rarely becomes real. You handled it well. I'm jealous, she continued. So what happened next? From Laura's tone, it was clear she realized her mistake and regretted crossing a line. Well, when I came to my senses and realized what I'd done, I felt overwhelmed with guilt. I knew it was wrong, and Bob would never forgive me if he found out. I had to make sure it never happened again. I told Stan it was a one-time thing, and we could never do it again. I reminded him that Bob was his friend and would feel betrayed by both of us if he knew. Stan agreed, saying it was just a moment of passion and promised to keep it a secret forever. Standing there, torn apart by shock and pain, Laura's confession echoing in my head, Mary's words dealt the final blow to my fading hope, crushing the last of my illusions. I felt completely lost and empty. So, how did you end up in bed with Stan and get your husband all worked up? This question shattered me. Humiliated and confused, I wanted nothing more than to confront both Stan and my unfaithful wife head-on. Laura hesitated before telling me how Stan turned to her for comfort when he was feeling really low. But any momentary satisfaction she felt was overshadowed by the guilt of betraying me and causing so much pain. She sounded sad as she shared the details of what happened between her and Stan. No, please don't see it that way. I made another dumb mistake. I messed up and should have known better, she said in a serious tone. Stan called and asked me to lunch, but I said no because I knew we shouldn't meet alone. He said he was feeling down and just needed someone to talk to, and he felt like I was the only one who could understand. Stan offered to cook dinner if I came to his place for at least an hour. I made another huge mistake by going to his place alone. We had salads and wine and talked. After a while, he thanked me for our previous meeting, kissed me gently, and things went further. It wasn't romantic. It was just physical. I knew it was wrong, but it happened. Honestly, it was the most satisfying physical encounter I've had in years. He's been lacking for so long and is a passionate lover. It was a few hours of intense passion, but we both knew it wouldn't happen again. After I showered and got dressed, I made it clear it was a one-time thing and he shouldn't contact me. We both agreed, and that was the end of it. So, you never saw him again after that? Only those 2 times. Anger surged through me and I clenched my fists tightly, trying to control the storm of emotions inside me. Laura admitting to her brief affair with Stan felt like a stab in the heart, the pain getting worse with each word she said. My world fell apart, and the life I knew was gone. I was filled with rage, yet desperate to save our relationship. I couldn't bear the betrayal, but I couldn't bear to lose her either. I felt lost and vulnerable, grappling with conflicting feelings, resentment and anger mixed with helplessness, leaving me feeling utterly confused. How could she do this? How could she betray our trust like that? Just as I searched for hope, Laura's next words hit me hard, reopening old wounds. Her casual dismissal of her actions hurt me deeply, fueling my anger and disbelief. I know it was wrong, but it just happened, she said, making it seem like her actions were out of her control. At that moment, my anger peaked. How could she brush off her actions like that? My fury grew as I listened to her downplay her betrayal. I felt a deep sense of betrayal, not just from the physical act, but from risking our marriage for momentary pleasure. The room felt like it was closing in on me as I struggled with my anger. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but I knew it wouldn't help. The pain was overwhelming, weighing heavily on my chest. In that moment, I realized I couldn't deal with it all at once. So when Laura spoke again, I listened closely, hoping to find some hope for our future together. When Laura spoke, her voice trembled with emotion. She admitted that despite feeling guilty, she couldn't shake the memories of the intense passion she shared with Stan. These memories became a secret refuge for her, emerging during intimate moments with me. No, never again. All I have now are beautiful memories. It's hard to say, but I use them when Bob and I are intimate. I know it's wrong, but I can't forget them now that they're all I have left. It was a heartbreaking confession. Laura's words carried a tone of sadness as she struggled with the realization that these memories of Stan would always stay with her, despite her efforts to erase them. Emily stayed quiet, but after Laura's confession, she spoke up. Laura, I envy you so much. I love Scott, but I've often wondered what it would be like to be intimate with someone else. I don't mean to offend, but Scott is kind of small. I love him, but I'm curious to try something different just once. Mary let out a soft sigh, seeming moved by the story. My goodness, and poor Bob remains clueless, unaware of Stan or your fantasies during intimacy. This is shocking, Laura, but you need to get your act together and forget about Stan. Bob deserves better, and I'll make sure he's taken care of. Trust me, he'll never find out, and I won't let this happen again. I promise. It was a mistake, and the guilt weighs heavily on me. Sharing the whole ordeal with someone brought some relief, along with the wine. Now, my future hung in the balance as the women chatted about me. I felt like a fool who had funded my wife's lavish lifestyle without realizing it. The spa days, country club memberships, shopping sprees, and luxurious home, all paid for by me. A mug, known as a naive husband. Laura's confession left me in disbelief, tears flowing down my face, revealing the depth of my pain. Time seemed to blur as I listened, unable to pull myself away from the painful truth. I realized I needed to step back from the situation, at least for a while. With a heavy heart, I grabbed my fishing bait and the bottle of sherry I had bought for the guys and headed back to Rosier's house. The guys were waiting for me. Despite the turmoil inside me, tears continued to fall as I drove, my mind filled with confusion and resentment. I needed time to process it all, to come to terms with the betrayal I had just discovered. I wasn't ready to confront Laura about what I had learned. The pain was too much, too overwhelming. I wanted to stick to my original plan, to get away for the weekend and find solace in solitude. But fate seemed to mock me when I realized I'd be spending those days with Stan, the one involved in the heartbreaking affair. The thought of being near him only added to my pain. I didn't know what to expect, and the uncertainty weighed heavily on me. Could I control my emotions? Could I face him without crumbling under the devastation inside me? As I drove back to Roger's house, tears continued to flow, and a deep sense of loss and pain engulfed me. The upcoming weekend felt like a dark cloud hanging over me, and I didn't know how to cope. All I knew was that I needed time to recover, to fix the broken pieces of my heart. At that moment, I felt completely alone, let down by someone I cared about and trusted. The sadness overwhelmed me, and I prayed for the strength to mend my wounded soul someday. When I got there, Roger was outside loading his Escalade. When I got closer, he noticed something wasn't right, seeing the blank look in my eyes. I wasn't ready to talk about it, but when he asked what was wrong, I managed to come up with a believable excuse. "Bob? What's the matter? You look terrible. Is everything okay?" "Sorry, Roger, just dealing with a bad headache. I need some time to relax." "Are you sure? You seem really off." "Yes, I'll be fine. Just let me sit in the front. I'll close my eyes and I'm sure I'll feel better. Plus, I wouldn't miss our yearly trip for anything. I need the break." "Sure, no problem. Why don't you go inside and unwind while we finish up? We'll leave in about 30 minutes. I'll come get you when we're ready." True to his word, 30 minutes later, I found myself in the front seat with Roger keeping an eye on me. He gave me his wife's sleep mask and a pair of noise-canceling headphones as I settled in the passenger seat, with Stan and Scott in the back. With the blindfold and headphones on, I was surrounded by darkness, limiting my senses to smell, touch, and taste, which helped me process the unexpected situation. The guys respected my need for space and offered help if I needed it. Unable to face Stan, I kept my eyes shut and thanked them for understanding. For the next 3 hours in the darkness, I sat quietly, thinking about the disaster I had just witnessed. Remembering our years together, how much I loved Laura and felt grateful for our children, Michael and Katie. She said it was a one-time mistake, that she regretted it and promised never to do it again. Forgiving and forgetting was hard for me, but her lingering thoughts about Stan haunted me, especially during intimate moments. Sadly, I think this confession marks the end of our marriage. I wondered how the cherished memories of our family could fade away. Tears clouded my vision, but I wiped them away before anyone noticed. For the first time, I felt confused and conflicted. Without answers or guidance, I was lost and unsure. And I must have fallen asleep because the next thing I remember is Roger shaking my shoulder, waking me up. "Dude, are you okay? How are you feeling?" he asked, already near the fishing hut. I remained unusually quiet for the next 2 days, blaming my headache. The guys respected my need for space as I tried not to spoil Scott and Roger's trip. During this time, I wrestled with my feelings, thinking about my life, both past and future. Although difficult, I was determined to endure. 2 days later, still struggling with uncertainty, I found myself walking along the trail toward the lake, accompanied only by Stan. Roger and Scott were supposed to meet us at the boat dock. I followed behind Stan as we made our way through the woods. As we moved along the path, Laura's words echoed in my mind, and suddenly I was overwhelmed by anger. I noticed a sizable fallen branch beside the path, roughly the size of a baseball bat. Acting on impulse, I grabbed it, feeling its weight in my hands. Looking at Stan, who was about 20 paces ahead of me, I impulsively lunged forward, lifted the heavy branch, and brought it down onto Stan's right shoulder. Originally aiming for his head, I changed my target at the last moment, hitting his collarbone instead, causing him intense pain as he fell to the ground. Standing over him, I looked down at the man who had been involved with my wife. He held his injured shoulder as I yelled, "This is for you, for being with my wife." Then, I delivered a strong kick between his legs. I hit him with all my strength, watching him writhe in pain until he passed out. After a few moments, I regained my composure, carrying Stan to a nearby tree and propping him up until he regained consciousness. When he woke up, he muttered, "What the hell?" I interrupted angrily. "Shut up. You were with her. That's it. Don't talk to me for the rest of the trip. And don't say anything to Laura about this. If you do, you'll regret it. I don't know what I'll do with her, but I don't need you to ruin it further. You've ruined my 20-year marriage. Don't ruin my revenge." "Bob, she loves you. You can't leave her. It's all my fault, and I'm truly sorry. Please, blame me, not her." "Bob, when Susan left me, Laura was there for me. It just happened, and she felt guilty afterward. Dude, don't leave her. She loves you." I hit him again. "I told you to shut up." At that moment, Roger and Scott saw me delivering another blow, and they rushed over to pull me away. "Bob, what's happening? What happened?" Roger helped me up, and we headed back to the cabin. For the next hour, Stan nursed his injured shoulder, expressing anger at my surprise attack and calling the fight unfair. I glared at him and told him to be quiet. Then, I played the recording for everyone to hear. After the recording ended, Roger expressed his anger at his nephew. "You're a damn fool. You betrayed our friend, the man who gave you a job when you were down and out and trusted you. You had an affair with one of our wives and had the nerve to come on this trip with us. And you're still upset that Bob hurt you? You should be grateful we didn't throw you into the lake. We don't want to see or hear from you for the rest of this trip. Not a word. Consider yourself lucky to be alive," Roger exclaimed. Scott added, "Guys, there's another issue with this recording. You heard what my wife and Mary said, how interested they were in it. All our wives seem okay with Laura's cheating and are keeping it quiet. I don't know about you, but I have a problem with that. When I get back, Emily and I are going to have a serious conversation." "Yeah, you're right, Scott. It's disrespectful to all of us." He turned to Stan, glaring at him, and remarked, "Look at the mess you've made, idiot. You ruined one marriage, and possibly two more. Maybe we should leave you stranded in the middle of the lake." Stan simply hung his head, remaining silent. Realizing the seriousness of what happened, I spoke up. "Guys, I agree they're all involved. But please, give me a few days before we do anything. I'll share the recording with you, but I need to talk to Laura first before she finds out I know everything because of this idiot. I don't think I can stay with her. Every time we're intimate, I'll know she's thinking about him. Knowing that, I can't keep our marriage going. I'll probably file for divorce. I just need a few days to figure everything out." Roger fixed a stern look at his nephew, Stan. "You're awful. You won't say a word to Laura or the other wives unless we say so. If you even hint to Laura about what's coming, we'll make your life miserable. And if you disappear, none of us will care. You're family, but that's the only reason I didn't leave you out in the woods. You disrespected our friend, a good man. Just because you couldn't handle your own relationship, you went and got involved with someone else's wife. You're garbage, and it's shameful to say you're my sister's child. Not a word. Got it?" Stan nodded silently in agreement. During the trip, nobody spoke to him, and to his credit, he kept to himself, avoiding any trouble. Now, the only thing left was what to do about Laura. On the way home, I thought about the situation, considering how Laura might react if our roles were reversed. Then I had an idea. I had a plan. Despite my anger, I still cared for Laura deep down, and I might be able to forgive a one-time mistake with Stan. But the thought of her fantasizing about it while being intimate with me was unbearable. So I decided to let Laura decide her own fate. My plan was to bring up infidelity, suggesting that I was having an affair myself, and see how she reacted and what she did afterward. If she could forgive one mistake, then I could too for her sake, and we could move forward. Whatever her response, that's how I would feel about her and our marriage. The solution to her mistake would be up to her. Arriving home and pulling into the driveway, my anger churned just below the surface. Despite feeling gloomy, it was time to confront Laura, and I had to push my emotions aside and act as if everything was normal. A difficult task. Stepping into the house, Laura greeted me warmly, looking sharp, and hugged and kissed me, a gesture I knew I would miss if things went south. Although I was still angry, I couldn't ignore my lingering affection for the woman who betrayed me. Thoughts of her betrayal fueled my anger, but the smell of her perfume and the delicious dinner she made helped calm me down. We had a nice meal, during which I kept my composure while she talked about the past few days. It was still early when she led me to the bedroom, expressing her desire for affection and closeness. Despite her obvious desire for intimacy, I couldn't bring myself to fully engage. As she eagerly undressed and pulled me towards her on the bed, I hesitated for the first time in our relationship. Laura looked at me in confusion, wondering what had gone wrong. Putting my phone on the nightstand, I started recording audio to ensure there would be no misunderstandings during our conversation. "Laura, I need to confess something important. There's someone else, and it's been bothering me inside. I can't keep it to myself any longer," I said seriously. Startled, she looked at me and asked, "What do you mean, someone else?" "I'm truly sorry. It only happened a few times, but the passion was so intense that I can't forget it," I admitted. Her fiery temper flared up just as I expected. "You're terrible. You had intimacy with someone else, and now you can't stop thinking about it," she accused. "Baby, it was only physical. I still love you," I assured her, careful not to reveal the full extent of my betrayal. "I can't believe this. What do you mean you can't stop thinking about it?" she pressed. "Well, honestly, it was the most incredible experience of my life, and I can't seem to shake it," I replied cautiously, echoing her own words from the recording. Her tears started flowing, clearly hurt by the idea of betrayal. Was I harsh and rude? Maybe. But the truth is, I'm the one who's been wronged, not her. I'll let her have her say, I thought to myself. Suddenly, she exploded in anger, yelling, "Forget you! Pack your bags and leave! I won't stay married to a cheater, got it? My father cheated on my mother, leaving her broken. I won't let you do that to me. Go now! I'll divorce you and make you pay for it." As she berated me, listing all she had done for our family, I almost chuckled at her reaction. She wouldn't be so confident in a few moments, that was for sure. "Laura, it was just a physical encounter. Only twice. Come on, it was just once. Are you really thinking about divorce over this? Think about it. It was just physical intimacy. Are you serious? I can't trust you. And yes, I want a divorce. And you'll pay a hefty price. You do know our state recently passed a law favoring the victim of infidelity, right? I'll use this law to divorce you and take everything you own. I might even take your business and leave you as one of the guys at the pool. I never thought you could be so cold and heartless." As I've said, there was no emotional connection, just physical closeness. Is this really what you want? Are you sure? Reconciliation is out of the question. Maybe we could try counseling. I tried to save our marriage, but it seems you've decided to end it without realizing it. No, it's over between us. I won't be married to a cheater. Just pack your things and go. Stay with Roger or get a hotel room, but I don't want to see you anymore. You'll hear from my lawyer. I couldn't help but smile. She unknowingly made her decision. With malice in her voice, she demanded, "Why are you smiling like that?" "Well, honey, you've just made my choice easier," I replied. "What do you mean?" she asked. "Let me show you something. Get dressed and come with me," I instructed. Though still angry, she reluctantly followed me to the workshop. I positioned her by the window where I had made the recording. Instructing her to stay there, I stepped outside, connected my Bluetooth speakers to my iPhone, and returned. Despite her anger, confusion washed over her face as I pressed play on my phone. My wife's confusion deepened upon hearing her own voice, yet she remained attentive. Her expression then shifted to shock as she absorbed the entire conversation. Tears streamed down her face as she collapsed to her knees, the weight of realization hitting her hard. "Darling, I'm so sorry." "How did you hear that?" she asked, her tears flowing. "Well, it's not really important, but I had to return for something I forgot. I didn't want to interrupt your gathering, so I slipped in through the back door to avoid disturbing your little party. That's when I overheard your conversation about me in bed. I wrote it down intending to share and tease you later. But when you confessed to your affair with Stan, I stayed and transcribed everything," I explained. "Sweetheart, you heard me say it was just a one-time thing, just physical involvement. You must understand, there's nothing between us. I need your forgiveness. I'm truly sorry, but you weren't meant to find out." Amidst our tears and anguish, Laura's words of remorse broke through the pain. Her voice trembled with genuine sorrow and regret as she begged for forgiveness, exposing her vulnerability. Her plea touched my heart, revealing the depth of our love buried beneath the hurt and anger. However, I couldn't give in to her tears and pleas. My tone turned cold and distant as I revealed the painful truth to Laura. The resentment ran deep, and I couldn't shake the sense of betrayal that consumed me. Her confession about fantasizing about Stan during our intimate moments shattered the remaining trust between us. "I heard it all, Laura," I replied, the warmth vanishing from my voice. "You're right. But you forgot to mention that you confessed to dreaming about him while we were together. How can I just overlook that?" For the first time in our marriage, her tears didn't move me. Yet her words pierced my heart deeply. The thought of her fantasizing about another man while I poured my love into our relationship was unbearable. "I can't ignore this, Laura," I continued, bitterness in my words. "And I can't ignore that you were never going to tell me and kept me in the dark. You've broken something inside me, and I don't know if I can trust you again. How can I believe in your love if you're dreaming of someone else?" I burned with anger, feeling like I deserved better. The thought of being with someone who couldn't fully commit was crushing. "I can't just act like everything's okay," I said firmly. "Thinking about another man while we're together is enough for me to consider separating. I don't know how to love you again, knowing you're thinking of him instead of me during our intimate moments." The pain in my heart was unbearable, and fixing our relationship felt hopeless. I couldn't forgive her for hurting me so deeply. Silence filled the room after my words hung heavily. There was nothing more to say. The truth had been spoken, and the pain was too deep to ignore. It was clear that the damage done was beyond repair, and I couldn't see a way to forgive. In that moment, I realized our love was shattered forever, and the future we once imagined was now just a distant memory. Though it hurt, I had to accept this truth if I wanted to heal and move forward, even if it meant doing it without her. No, that's not what I meant. You don't understand. I love you and don't want him," I pleaded with Laura, hoping she'd understand the pain she caused. "Bob, you need to let me explain everything. Don't give up on me," Laura responded desperately. As I confronted her, anguish and betrayal laced my words. "I heard what you said on that recording, and the thought of him in our bed is too much for me. I never thought you'd betray my love and hurt me like this. If I'm wrong, look me in the eye and tell me it's not true. Look at me and say you weren't thinking of him when we were intimate." But she couldn't meet my gaze, and the truth hung heavy in the air. "Yes, you can't even look at me," I sighed, feeling defeated. "You've destroyed everything, Laura," I muttered, feeling crushed by her betrayal. "Once I divorce you, you can be with him, and then you won't have to dream about him anymore." Tears rolled down her face as Laura barely whispered, "You can't leave me. I love you. Please let me fix this." But the wounds were too deep, the trust too broken to repair. "This is ironic. Now you want my forgiveness? How surprising. I'll fix everything. I love you." "I'm sorry," I echoed her words bitterly, struggling to understand how everything fell apart so quickly. "What makes you think I'll stay with you after what you did? Do I look like someone who would forgive his cheating wife's betrayal?" I asked, my voice shaking with a mix of anger and sadness. Laura's betrayal deeply wounded me, leaving me exposed and fragile. As I spoke to Laura, my voice shook with a mix of feelings. "I've been in turmoil for the past 3 days. Part of me wanted to forgive you and repair our relationship. I thought I could move past this one-time mistake, but everything changed when I heard what you told your friends." Every word felt like a stab in my heart, painfully reminding me of the love I had lost. The ache in my heart was real, impossible to hide in my voice. Hearing her casually discuss intimate details of her thoughts during our moments together shattered the last shreds of trust I had. Tears welled up in my eyes as I struggled to comprehend how quickly everything fell apart. Throughout our marriage, I never cried openly, but now I couldn't contain my pain. I felt completely embarrassed. As I spoke, the weight of my emotions threatened to engulf me. "Laura," I continued, tears streaming down my face and my voice shaking. "These women, your friends, now see me as an oblivious husband. It feels like living a lie, not knowing what was going on behind my back, knowing they were mocking me and labeling me as ignorant, shattered whatever self-respect I had left." The ensuing silence was heavy, each moment filled with our emotions. The future felt uncertain and I didn't know what lay ahead. But one thing was clear: I couldn't endure a marriage tainted by betrayal and doubt. As reality sank in, I knew a decision had to be made. Since I couldn't decide our future, I came up with a plan. I'll reveal the details of the affair, and how we move forward will depend on your reaction. The brilliance of my plan was that the fate of our marriage rested entirely on you. However, even as I outlined my strategy, the sense of betrayal hung in the air. But now this is what you can expect from me. I won't kick you out like you did to me. but you'll move to the guest room because I can't share our bed with you. I'll consult with a lawyer and pursue charges of infidelity. I'm eager to use that new divorce law you've been so eager to share, fueled by all your anger." As Laura begged for forgiveness, the weight of our 2 decades together weighed heavily on me. "What about our 20 years and our kids?" I asked, my voice thick with emotion. The pain of betrayal was immense, and I felt keenly the impact of her actions on our entire family. "I know it won't be easy," I said, my voice trembling with resentment and anger. "But I can't overlook what you've done, Laura. You didn't consider our children or our years of commitment when you chose to betray me and our family." Her betrayal deeply wounded me, creating an intense pain in my heart. "The trust we had is shattered, and I'm unsure how to move forward. What you did is unforgivable," I stated firmly, "and you'll face the consequences, just as you were ready to hold me accountable for my mistakes. Now gather your things from our bedroom." With a heavy heart, I led her away, separating her physically from the space that once symbolized our love. The room where we shared precious moments now carries the stain of betrayal. That night, I couldn't find comfort in sleep, mourning the end of our marriage. I loved her deeply. Knowing she fantasized about another man during our most intimate moments weighed heavily on me. Some men can forgive such indiscretions, but I couldn't find the strength to do so. The pain was too much, and the trust was shattered. Despite my love for her, her words were an insurmountable barrier. Our dream of a future together was shattered, leaving an unfillable void. I had to honor my own feelings, even if it meant letting go of the woman I cherished. Before she left, I looked at the woman I had loved for 20 years and said, "You've broken my heart. Today, I've lost someone who didn't appreciate me. But today, you've lost someone who was willing to do anything for you." The echoes of her pleas for forgiveness stayed with me as I said goodbye to Laura for the last time. Bob faced the heartbreaking task of telling his children, dreading the moment when he would share the devastating news. His son Michael offered understanding and unwavering support, providing some comfort amid the turmoil. However, Katie's reaction crushed his hopes. Her anger, reflecting her close bond with her mother, hurt him deeply. Bob tried hard to mend their relationship, but it felt impossible. In a rare show of strength, Laura took the initiative to talk to Katie, admitting her mistake and urging her not to blame her father, who had done nothing wrong. The children's lives were changed forever, but Bob remained determined to secure their future, promising to fund their college education and provide for them. The confrontation between the couples was filled with betrayal and sadness. Mary felt her heart break when she heard about Laura's divorce, sensing their long friendship falling apart. Roger was furious, confused by his wife's keeping quiet about her affair, and even seeming to support it. The revelation from the tape was devastating, making him question everything. The hurt was too deep to ignore, and it seemed like their strong bond was broken beyond repair. The following days were full of strong emotions and sadness as they faced the consequences of their actions. The close group of friends now struggles with the painful reality of betrayal and lost trust. Mary, devastated by Laura's divorce, confronted her husband Roger, realizing her role in hiding the affair. She felt awful as she understood the impact of her actions. Roger, furious, demanded answers about why she covered up for Laura and hurt their closest friend, leaving her speechless and full of regret. A similar scene played out at Scott's house when Emily heard incriminating words about her husband on the tape. Overwhelmed with shame, Scott decided to leave, leaving Emily in tears and regret. Meanwhile, tension grew in Bob and Laura's home as Bob served divorce papers. Despite Laura's apologies and understanding of her mistake, Bob remained silent. His pain was deep, knowing that reconciliation was impossible due to the immense hurt and broken trust. Our case went to Judge Montresor, making the divorce process tough as Laura tried desperately to save her marriage. During the trial, Stan confessed his guilt for the damage he caused. He was warned to tell the truth or face the consequences from his husbands. His testimony sounded more like an admission of guilt and an apology to those affected. Tears filled the courtroom as the final chapter of the marriage unfolded. Laura felt her heart sink as she listened to the affair on the recording. The judge's decision was quick. Bob received a large part of their assets and was denied spousal support according to new laws. Laura painfully accepted that her actions led to the end of her marriage. Her once exciting relationship with Stan now felt like a distant memory, overshadowed by the pain and regret she caused Bob. Their future, once bright, now lay in ruins, burdened by her betrayal. Faced with the harsh truth, Laura realized she not only lost her marriage, but also her sense of security and the life she cherished. The aftermath of their choices changed the lives of these friends forever, leaving behind sadness, regret, and broken trust. As they faced their past mistakes, Bob offered Laura a place to stay in their guest room, aiming to help her get back on her feet. The large house made it easier for them to live together without too much tension. Bob threw himself into work to keep his mind busy, often coming home late to avoid running into Laura. Despite Laura's efforts to reconcile with Bob, he remained firm in his decision to keep his distance. He began dating Becky, his secretary, who happily brought joy to his life. Despite their age difference, Becky admired Bob and was committed to him. She couldn't understand Laura's actions, but felt fortunate to be with Bob. Becky was determined to show Bob her loyalty and love. The weight of the past few months took a toll on Laura. Seeing Becky move in and take her place in Bob's life was a constant reminder of what she had lost. Watching Bob and Becky together hurt Laura deeply, feeling each moment between them like a stab in the heart. Jealousy consumed her, and she regretted her choices that led to this situation. Their once happy home now filled Laura with sorrow as she watched Bob and Becky grow closer. The bed they shared now belonged to Bob and Becky, adding to Laura's pain as she faced the consequences of her decisions. Feeling alone and scared, Laura struggled to cope with her emotions. She had no job prospects and feared a future without Bob, adding to her distress. She knew she had to confront her reality and rebuild her life, even though it seemed daunting. Despite the challenges ahead, Laura held on to hope that she could find peace and happiness again, even if it meant letting go of her dreams with Bob. Meanwhile, at Bob's workplace, Stan's role in Bob's divorce caused him to be ostracized by his coworkers. He felt like an outcast, which affected his work performance, leading to complaints and financial losses. Stan realized he couldn't stay and decided to leave. Stan took a brave step by starting his own business and quickly gained many clients. However, Bob's legal team pointed out that Stan had broken a non-compete agreement they had. Despite not fully understanding the legal details, Stan continued to grow his business. Bob's lawyer advised patience, suggesting they wait to gather evidence. Within 10 months, Stan built up over 100 clients, showing impressive growth in his business. At first, Stan enjoyed his success, but it didn't last long. He faced a lawsuit demanding $1 million settlement, accusing him of causing financial harm and breaking the non-compete agreement. In the midst of the legal trouble, Bob, still hurt by Stan's actions, sought revenge. He didn't just want money, he wanted Stan to pay for his part in Bob's marriage falling apart and losing loyal clients. After the legal battle ended, Stan suffered severe consequences. Bob won the case and took over Stan's thriving business, pushing Stan into bankruptcy. The career he worked hard to build and the chance of owning part of Bob's multi-million-dollar business vanished. Stan was left broke and emotionally wounded. Without formal education, he had to resort to tough manual labor to get by. The harsh results of his actions taught Stan a lesson he'd never forget: not to interfere in someone else's marriage and not to betray trust. Scott and Roger's wives also realized the danger they narrowly avoided, learning from Laura's mistake. This made them rethink their relationships and commit to rebuilding trust and communication. Over time, they strengthened their marriages, rediscovering love and forgiveness. Though they distanced themselves from Laura and Bob, they held on to memories of their past friendship. Laura's life turned grim as she dealt with the aftermath of her failed marriage. Working as a dental office receptionist gave her some stability, but it couldn't replace the happiness she once had with Bob. Living in a modest apartment, she felt the weight of loneliness and regret every day, trying her best to move on. Starting a new relationship with an older man from work provided some comfort, but it didn't compare to the love she lost with Bob. The joy she used to feel now felt like a distant memory. Her past mistakes haunted her constantly, a constant reminder she couldn't shake off. In quiet moments, she wondered what could have been, wishing she had made different choices to save her life with Bob. However, she had to accept that she had let go of something special and irreplaceable. The bright future she once envisioned now seemed overshadowed by darkness. A deep sadness and longing for what she lost consumed her. While Bob missed Laura greatly, his void was filled by Becky, who made it her mission to be the perfect partner. Bob was attracted to her youthful energy and enthusiasm, and they got married a year later. Eventually, Michael and Katie welcomed a half-brother into the family a year after that.